Hey, what's up guys? I'm Theo Joe, and as you may know, I was at E3 last week, and of course they announced a lot of cool stuff, all the press conferences, the big companies were there, but what you might not have seen is all the stuff on the show floor, the cool booths. So I thought I would go over just that, the coolest booths they had at E3 that you might not have seen in other people's videos where they just talked about the announcements. I assume you already know about that, so let's talk about the best stuff that you see on the show floor if you didn't get a chance to go. Now, of course, there's always the three big booths. There's Sony, PlayStation, Microsoft, Xbox, and then Nintendo. And I will say that the coolest of those three big booths was Nintendo by far. It was a huge booth and they had a really cool setup and it just looked awesome. It was pretty much designed to look like a set of city streets. So on the sides, there was like fake buildings set up, plastered all over the wall or the ceiling. And on the sides of the booth, I guess you could call it a booth, it was a huge area though. They had games set up like Super Mario Odyssey, they had FIFA, the Mario plus Rabbids game, the new one. So there's a lot of cool stuff. There was displays in the middle for like Amiibo, and then in the front they had a giant stage where they were showing off game demos, doing some cool presentations. Some of the cool props they had was this Mario tank, which was pretty big. It moved at some point, and then it lit up a little bit, so that was pretty neat. And then they had the Bullet Bill, as it's called, hanging from the ceiling. And you could see like their street signs, which looked like the Mario question mark box. A lot of cool stuff, really neat atmosphere. It was fun to really just walk around and see all the stuff, even if you didn't play any of the games. This was probably my favorite of the big three. Another really cool booth was for Middle-earth: Shadow of War that you can see here. From the floor to the ceiling, they had this, really awesome red, like volcano type atmosphere, and they had really awesome lighting effects, even smoke coming out of the volcano. And they had this like castle wall where inside, I guess they were showing off a theater with like game demos and that sort of thing. And they also had some photo op areas. So if you wanted to get a photo, they had like a fake dragon. And they also had some actors walking around dressed as orcs. So they were in character. They would walk around the outside of the booth, and they can see that, they would stay in the booth and you get a photo with them and they would kind of growl at you or whatever. So overall, it was just a fun booth. Not too much going on in there, but it was just neat to walk by and see. You couldn't miss it. It was one of the first ones you would notice. The next booth was for Wolfenstein 2, the New Colossus. This one was in the shape of a diner, and the whole idea behind the story of this new one is that it's what if Germany invaded America during World War II. So in this one, you can see a diner that's featured in the trailer. And there wasn't too much going on again in this one, but inside they did have some game demos where you could play. I didn't go inside because again, the line was really long, just like everything else at E3. And what was neat about this is it pretty much looked like a real 1960s diner building. The quality was just good. It wasn't like all just paper, wallpaper, that sort of thing. It actually looked like it could be a real diner. The next booth was Capcom, which had two different things. The first one was this giant dragon, so you get really up close to that. It was kind of like a jungle setup, but that's really all there was at that point, but just neat to look at. And then at the other side, they had this setup for Marvel versus Capcom. It's like a Street Fighter type game. And they had this throne with one of the characters, I guess, I don't know who it was. And it was a big giant setup, and on either side they had two players who could face off each other, and then at the top they had a giant screen where you could watch the people fighting. And they had some actual pretty decent players. I don't know if they were hired to play the game, but at one point it was pretty funny because the game crashed and then I had to go back to the PlayStation menu. Unfortunately, I did not get footage of that, but you can imagine how funny that was. The next booth was a big one. It was Activision, and it wasn't too spectacular, nothing amazing, but what I did think was notable was they had a whole bunch of different PCs set up, almost like on a staged arena type thing, where anyone could just wait in line, go up and play one of the games they had on display, such as Call of Duty World War II, one of the new ones. Destiny 2 was the other one. So this was pretty neat, nothing too exciting, especially Destiny 2. I'm kind of skeptical about that one ever since they released the first Destiny, which was the biggest disappointment ever. So I don't know, it's good that they at least show it off, but I'm not gonna hold my breath. At least they had it on display. Then of course there was the Sony booth. We can't forget that one. It wasn't one of the more amazing ones again, but they did have a lot of games set up, so that was kind of like the main focus. They had like Battlefront 2, they had Call of Duty World War II set up, they also had like Gran Gran Turismo. They had a whole big setup for that where you could sit in cars and actually play like a racing simulator. So I watched some people do that as well. And then they had PlayStation VR, a two-tiered area where you could wait in line and then go play PlayStation VR and watch people do that. And on the top, it had a screen so you could watch people what they were actually seeing. So you can see some of that footage here. And you can see they had some theaters set up for like Monster Hunter 2, Spider-Man, a couple of those games. Those actually did look pretty cool on the outside. Probably the most interesting part about the whole booth, besides the Gran Turismo part. Finally, we have the Xbox booth, which I think was the smallest of all the three major ones. And it had mostly games set up, which I guess makes sense. Although they did have some displays for like Sea of Thieves. That seemed to be like a major point they're trying to talk about, which actually did look like a pretty fun game. I'm pretty excited about it. Although one notable thing I will talk about is the awesome custom PC cases they had, which looked like engines or something. I don't know, they're obviously over the top, but they were pretty amazing to look at. One had like one of those plasma balls. It was pretty insane. So I guess that was pretty neat. But other than that, there wasn't anything really exciting. So that's pretty much it. Those are just what I think were the coolest booths and displays they had in the show floor. So if you didn't get a chance to go, you honestly didn't miss all that much besides just waiting in line. And besides that, there wasn't too much to do. But it was still cool to look at, and hopefully I was able to give you guys some of the neat stuff that they did have on display. So I'd like to hear what you guys think. Let me know down in the comment section if there were any that you think were your favorite. We can talk about that, and other people can give their opinion as well. If you want to keep watching, I'll put some other videos right here. You can click on those, including the Xbox booth, which I go into a little bit more detail. And if you want to subscribe, I make new videos every Tuesday, Thursday, at least it's usually Saturday. I'm kind of changing up my schedule. Maybe I'll start doing 2 videos a week and then a live stream on the weekend. We'll see, at least 2 videos a week, so should be worth it. Again, thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll see you next time. Have a good one.